This morning we're out on a private ranch looking over an ancient Native American site. The rancher called us after he'd seen our website. Our organization is the Hill Country Archaeological Association. We're a nonprofit organization of amateur, what we like to call avocational archaeologists, as well as some professional archaeologists. And we do professional archaeology according to accepted standards and methods, just like a university or any consulting group would do. The rancher suspected he had a site here and called us, and we actually came out a couple of different times before today and surveyed this whole area here. We're down in a valley at about 1,820 foot elevation above sea level. And what I am standing on is actually an Indian midden. And this was created through a process of what's called hot rock cooking that is, where they would bake in earth ovens native plants using hot rocks fired by charcoal. And after those rocks had been utilized over periods, they would break and crack and they'd move them out of the pit and put new rocks in it. And after a while, you get a buildup. Now, this is not a big midden here, but nonetheless, it indicates that this was a camping area for Native Americans, not a continuous occupational area, but one where they would come in maybe for a few days or a few weeks at a time and exploit the native plants in the area as well as the game. What you can see here is some surface artifacts. An artifact is something that's been modified by a human hand. In my right hand is a big piece of flint, or what we call chert more appropriately, that had been worked but not made into any kind of a tool or weapon. And this is a piece of one of these burned rocks. So these things are scattered all throughout this area, and they indicate that there were multiple cooking episodes over generations that literally, when put together, encompasses several thousand years. Now, the rancher has he wants us to do an excavation on this site in order to determine the age of it. We can do that if we find some diagnostic material like projectile points. We wouldn't ordinarily excavate a site like this because it's not in danger of being eroded away, and it's not in danger of being in front of a commercial development that would destroy it. But since he wanted this done, we're going to walk over in just a minute and look at what we're doing with this excavation, and we're going to see if we can find some diagnostic material. It's of the utmost importance in our work to keep these archaeological sites confidential. So this is just somewhere in the hill country, but it's very typical of hill country archaeological prehistoric Native American sites. The reason this site is here, if we look around, to my right, and actually behind me, are a couple of creeks that come together into one and form one creek down here behind me. And there's a couple of weak springs in existence right now. But thousands of years ago, when these people were here, they were here for a reason. They were here because there was water. That's one reason. Likely there was more water supply then than now because there weren't so many cedars on these hills, nor was there withdrawal out of the water table by modern wells like we have now. What else they had here on the hilltops, to my left here and back in this direction, literally 100 yards or so away from where I'm standing, were chert deposits. And that's what they used to make their lithic tools, their points and their knives and so forth. So they walked up there, flaked a little bit on that, came back down to the camp with the thinner, unfinished products, and then they would, where they were camped out here, they would make the points, the flint knappers, those ancient flint knappers. So where I'm standing in modern times would be the kitchen. Where they were in modern times would be something like the living room. And then you can imagine, just looking out on this little area here, they had their small structures, which were generally called wickiups. They were just a matter of sticks put together and grass and some tree limbs put over that just to keep them out of the weather. There's prickly pear cactus in this valley, and they ate the pears, and they also ate the pads. There's agarita bushes here. They ate the berries and also the flowers from the agarita. And believe it or not, they ate the acorns out of oak trees, and there are a number of oak trees down in this valley. And then the roots of yucca, the twisted yucca, and the sotol plants, which are in this area, were also favorite foods in the native plant menu that Native Americans utilized. And then they supplemented their diets with meat. Throughout Texas, there's a few particular sites that are very telltale as to what Native Americans ate. Some of these are cemetery sites and sinkholes, and scientists have done isotopic analysis of the bones of some of the Native Americans that are buried in there, and they can determine that their main diet was plants and that meat was more of a secondary diet. So they were moving around in a semi-nomadic way, really going after the plants, and whatever plants were in bloom, let's say, or in season, that's where they were going to camp, and then they would take native game, or rather wild game, around the camp as it was available. John, what are we finding so far, and how deep are we?
Well, at the present time, I'm finding a lot of small chert flakes, and we're down at the 4th level. We're probably, maybe a foot or so down, but of course we use the metric system, and that means that we're down probably about 32 centimeters or so. But I'm finding all these chert flakes, which are, as you explained earlier, are a result of flint knapping by Native Americans. And of course, this is a really good indication that we're probably going to find some artifacts in here. These are waste flakes from the process of making a tool, like a knife or an arrow point. And frequently, wherever you find these, you'll find broken arrow points, various kinds of tools. In most cases, we don't find a whole artifact, but we can find diagnostics in this kind of a situation if there's at least the base of an arrow point present. Typically, when we collect artifacts, we bag them and tag them like this. What I have here in my hand is several different artifacts that I'd like to just cover. These are typical of the area. They didn't come from this site. They came from a site near Comfort. This is a drill. It would probably have been hafted, and you would spin the haft, which would be just a shaft coming up here. This could be used to drill bone or wood or leather, anything that you wanted to put a hole in, maybe a mussel shell that you wanted to hang as a necklace. These are rare, pretty interesting. Probably was originally a point, and when the point broke, it was then turned into a drill like this. And this is the way we bag them and tag them. This is a Pertinalis point, one of the more common points in the area. It's from a period of 4,000 years ago, and it was probably used over about 1,000 years. But this particular point was found in Comfort at the same level as this piece of buffalo bone. So this was probably used, or possibly used, to kill the buffalo. And this bone itself has been fractured and broken, probably by a heavy strike. Native Americans would collect the marrow and consume it, or render it down to extract the fat and trade it or use it in cooking and various other types of processes. Another common artifact in the area are knives. This one's broken. It was obviously much longer. Sometimes they're 8 or 9 inches long, but it's extremely thin, as you can see. And this one was broken and probably discarded. These could be used for cutting meat, working any kind of material that was reasonably soft that you needed a sharp knife for. And this is a scraper. Scrapers were extremely common, used for taking the hair off of hides, taking the fat and off of the underside of the hide to prepare it. to prepare various kinds of materials such as wood for a haft to take the bark off. It might be used for cleaning materials for like sotol or various kinds of grasses like bear grass to make baskets or to weave mats. A very widely used tool. Those are some of the most important artifacts that you commonly find in the area. It looks like what you're finding is what I'm seeing here in the sieve, and of course the sieve soil is the same soil that has come out of this particular layer of the dig site, the excavation. And what we do here is we go ahead and dig layer by layer, much like a layer on a cake, about 4 inches at a time, and we call this a level. We're down at level 4 now, as I said, which is about 12 inches, maybe 13 inches or so down in the soil. And we see that there's some burned rock. Probably a better word would be to call it heat fractured rock. And this may have been a hearth at one time, which would be where they put the rocks together and built a fire on it for cooking or some other type of use. They're processing tools, various kinds of uses that they would put to a fire to. So you can see this is probably a campsite. They're cooking, they're making tools, weapons, probably sitting around here much like any family would, and laughing, kidding, joking, eating. This is kind of dinner time.
Well, they've been digging now for a while, John, and looks like they're getting further down, but so far that one point and a lot of flakes and a lot of burned rock, but if we quit right now, it's been good, right?
Oh, it's been a very exciting day. Sounds like we found something more exciting.
Oh, fabulous.
Oh, they got something.
Let's go over and have a look.
Wow.
Okay, what you guys got?
A perfect Boverde.
Oh my goodness,
They have a perfect point.
that is beautiful.
That is exciting.
It is perfect.
Bulverde is, of course, a much older point. And of course, these are dart points that were used on a short throwing spear. And in this case, this Bulverde is probably 4,000 years old or so. This particular point style was used 4,000 years ago, which is about the same time that the first pyramids were built by the Egyptians, if you want this kind of a context for the age. And of course, once they finish measuring it, then we can pick it up and have a look at it.
That's a beauty. That looks perfect.
Which is unusual, but it happens. You kind of wonder how in the world did a perfect point wind up being dropped right there. But maybe they left it behind, somebody lost it. An awful lot of the artifacts we find are just ones that are discarded because they're broken, no longer usable.
42.
That is a beauty. That is a perfect Bulverde point. And you know, this is what gets us so excited, isn't it? I mean, you realize my hand is the first human hand that's touched this in 4,000 years, most likely. And that is what makes archaeology so interesting. It's the thrill of the discovery, but then it's the data that the discovery gives you that's so useful for the professional archaeologists when they're writing their journals and so forth. So we can tag it and bag it.
We now know that this particular site, the oldest level, and we're down to level 5 now, is approximately 4,000 years old, and the level above it, where we found that Frio Point is 2,000 years old. So we know this site was occupied 4,000 years ago, and then again 2,000 years ago. It possibly was occupied in between too. These are nomadic hunters and gatherers, and they move from place to place.
There's possibly other diagnostic material deeper that will push the age of this site back even further. But I think the rancher's going to be very excited about this. He's going to know what age he's got here, and he's going to have these points to put in his living room if he wants to. The next time we come out here and finish, and then go back to the lab and start putting all of this information together, you know, it's like 1 hour in the field equals 4 hours in the lab. So it's going to take a lot of time to get all of this information together, all the reports and photographs and everything, which the rancher will have and which the state will have since he wants this recorded. And so this will go like we do as a regular basis when a landowner wants to do it. The reports will go to the Texas Archaeology Research Laboratory down in Austin at the University of Texas, and that will be the repository for them, and they will be confidential files that only privileged and confidential people can look at. So the privacy of this ranch will be protected. This has been a good day, guys. I mean, a couple of points like that,
Yep.
been good.